Hi again then guys, and welcome to the very first installment of another brand new game review series here on the channel, 4x4 World Trophy, also known and seemingly more predominantly known as Test Drive Off-Road 3. I personally prefer 4x4 World Trophy because it sounds cooler, but it seems to be better known by its other title. Now this is a PSX game, as if you needed to be told from the graphics, and I know that many people think, well, why do we go back to these older games here on the channel? But one of the reasons is because one of my goals here on the channel has always been to feature a ton of different driving games, racing games, be it cars, motorbikes, off-road, ATV stuff even. And although I'm not necessarily aiming to feature, every racing game ever made, because for one thing that's probably impossible, especially for a one-man team, but we can at least branch out into quite a few. And this is a new one that I've wanted to do for some time. Now this game, for those who are unfamiliar with it, is, as the name suggests, predominantly a off-road rally game, but in particular for SUVs, or 4x4s, as the title implies. Now the game clearly has a lot of connection to Hummer. I would not be at all surprised if they gave them a slightly cheaper licensing agreement to make the cars seem even better than they actually are, because the Hummers are pretty much the best all-round cars in the game, especially compared to how easy they are to get compared to some of the other cars that are on offer. Now each of the vehicles has 5 different ratings: top speed, acceleration, power, handling, and suspension. And each of these is rated out of the 14 possible points that it can have. So it's not out of 10, as we would usually do, so you have to remember that sometimes when I call out the ratings of the car, and I might even put the ratings on screen, but I'm not sure, we'll see how that goes. Now, what better place to start than with the cover car, the Hummer H1, and there are actually 4 different Hummers featured in this game. It might actually be the most Hummers of any game I've played. In fact, you've got the H1 in this form, the 4-door pickup. You've also got the full-on 2-door pickup version, the Carrier as they call it. You've got the H1 Alpha box body, the full H1 with 5 doors and the trunk on the back, and you've got the military Humvee. So Hummer clearly has a special place in the heart of the people who made this game. Now, as far as how this one stacks up, across the board it's very good. Again, not too surprising. Hummers are very good off-roaders, of course, but in some ways I think they might be giving the car a little bit too much credit. Hummers, for instance, aren't exactly known for being fast. You've got that big 6.6 litre V8 diesel, about 300 horsepower or so, of course way more torque than that. I think it's something like 650 pound-feet, if not more. And of course, you can tune the cars up in the game as well. And as you probably noticed, it doesn't exactly look like a stock Hummer that I'm driving, because it's not. It's got the ride height increase, the jacked up suspension option in other words, big heavy duty tyres, and I've also upgraded the engine as well. And you can do that to all of the vehicles in the game, but of course the results are significantly different per car. And I have to say, for a game that's not that well talked about, the tuning options are actually surprisingly good. You can raise the suspension, drop it, fit the car with a roll cage, racing brakes. You can go for a torque package, a turbo package, a more top-end spec package. There's a pretty good amount of tuning that you can do. You can put big paddle tyres on it for going through water, racing tyres, chunky tyres, stock tyres. So again, especially for a PSX game from the year 2000, it stacks up surprisingly well, and that brings me to the physics, because the physics of this game are surprisingly easy to use. A lot of older racing games do not age well when it comes to that, but I have to say this one's still a lot of fun. Now, as far as this Hummer goes, it's definitely a brilliant all-rounder, and one of the things that makes it good is actually fairly realistic, and that is that the Hummer H1 is not particularly long, but it's quite wide. In fact, it's very wide by the standards of the time especially, and that allows the car to have a very almost square physique, where it's not overly long, but it's also quite wide in comparison to that length, and that makes it very, very stable, especially over big jumps in real life and certainly in the game as well. Now, you might have noticed off the line at the start of the video that this thing does 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds with the turbo package, which of course is being insanely generous to the vehicle. You'd have to give the car like 2,000 horsepower to be able to do that, but of course it's a game at the end of the day, and it's not trying to be the most realistic thing around. Overall though, this particular version of the Hummer is, I believe, if memory serves, the easiest one to actually access in the game, so it's definitely worth going for. It may not be as quick as some for top speed or for acceleration, but it's certainly not slow. 6 out of 14 for top speed, 5.5 for acceleration, 5.2 for power, 6 for handling, and a very impressive 10.5 for suspension quality. And again, all of those can change when you tune the vehicle up, and they change quite drastically, in fact, in some cases. So overall, it's definitely a car that's worth getting as soon as you can, because the game clearly has a bias toward the Hummer, and so the vehicle is unsurprisingly very good. It's much more stable than something like a Jeep Wrangler or the old school Cherokee, which are much narrower and taller and easier to tip over, but at the same time it's got the torque, it's got the power, and the handling is surprisingly good, especially with the updates applied. Now, if you want to go and play this game, which you can buy dirt cheap, and you can even play it on your PS3 as I am, then I would recommend inputting your driver name as Zachary X, because that allows you to unlock everything in the game immediately. And that's what I actually used to do these reviews, because of course I don't have time to play through every single game that I talk about to unlock all of the cars, so that's a very easy way to do that if you want to. But overall, that's it for my thoughts on this first episode, and you might be surprised actually at just how cool some of the vehicles that we review in this game are. You've even got stuff like the 6-wheel Dodge Ram T-Rex, military vehicles, there's even a missile launching vehicle in the game. You can't actually fire the missiles, but it's close enough. There are some little off-road ATV style things, so there's some cool stuff. You've even got Celine featured in the game, and Shelby as well. So we'll get to those in due time, but for now, that's it for this first episode, and of course, I'll see you guys next time. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.